And we are back. And we just finished watching 1971's Harold and Maude. This is rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes. This is directed by Hal Ashby and comes from a script by Colin Higgins. This is currently streaming on Paramount Plus, as well as Pluto TV, and also to buy rent on Prime. We actually saw this on the TCM app. This was on the other day. We tried to watch it, but immediately fell asleep. But don't let that dissuade you. That's only because we're old and feeble.
And our bellies were full.
And our bellies were full after dinner. But we caught it on the TCM app. It's there until, I believe, next week. Absolutely make the time and check out Harold and Maude. You won't regret it. This is your first time watching. What did you think of the film?
Yeah, first time I ever watched it.
You've heard of it, though.
I have heard of it. I was under a misconception whenever I heard people talk about Harold and Maude. I did not know it was about a guy in his 20s. Mm-hmm. I always thought it was about a kid and an old lady. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is Bud McCort,
who looks like a child.
Looks like he's 11 years old in this movie. He looks like a 70s kid, the bowl head haircut.
Yeah.
Skinny. Just skinny guy in like
skinny.
The 70s clothes, sort of like dressed like a banker.
Yes. In that opening sequence, so he's got like that gold bracelet and the ring, and he's got like the old people clothes, and I was like, he's like a mobster or something.
He's got like
a 30s mobster.
Old man shoes,
sort
of bell bottoms-ish type pants.
Yes. In this film, absolutely, Harold is not a youthful young man. He is more sullen and repressed and sad and just everything. And the things that he does, I guess, to get his mother's attention are just very outlandish.
Well, I think it's not so much as getting her attention, but as getting... Because remember what he says. He's like, the best he ever felt was when... he saw his mother's reaction to when she thought he was dead.
Right.
And I guess he was always going for that again because that made him feel something. He's definitely a strange guy.
Yeah.
In that he's pretty much obsessed with suicide and death.
To the point where he goes to funerals.
Yeah, that was a funny scene with him in this. For some reason, he always dressed exactly like a psychiatrist when he'd go see him.
Yes.
I don't know. They never address that.
No.
It's just it's not like as though this is something he plans. It's just he's always dressed same colored tie, same suit, same pants, everything. And the psychiatrist is obviously asking him questions, trying to figure this young man out. And he's like, well, "What do you do for fun? What do you do that brings satisfaction to your life?"
Yeah.
And he just looks at him after a moment, and he just goes, "I go to funerals." And that's what he does. He goes to funerals. Yes. He just sits among the mourners. And I guess something about that, he gets a little something out of it.
Yeah.
And through the course of this, he notices that there is this older woman who is also just attending funerals.
Well, she seems to try to grab his attention.
Yeah, she flags him down.
Yeah.
She's like, psst, psst, like in the middle of the funeral.
With no regard to what's going on around her.
And she's a
tsunami.
She is a crazy old bag. She is just grasping life in both fists.
Yes.
Kind of like
the complete opposite
to him. And she, for some reason, I guess she reaches out to him, and they complement each other very, very well.
Yes. So. The other thing that I think is really impressive here is that, so as a modern audience, I can understand why people would be bored with this. It is very slow moving, I think.
It has that 70s
pacing.
Yeah.
So, but if you stick with it,
it's rewarding. Yeah.
It really is rewarding. And this film does an excellent job of melding comedy with like these tender, poignant moments. And it's funny because the comedy is never too much.
No, there's no gut-busting scenes.
No.
Probably the closest you'll get to a scene where you'll get like a steady stream of laughs is the priest at the end. Just revolted by
the possible
concept of
Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude commingling. I love that. I I mean, I've heard that term before, but it's such an old term.
Yes. And the way he says it
just describing Maud's body.
And Bud's, I mean,
her withered flesh.
Harold. yes.
Sagging breasts.
But and the tender moments aren't so overpowering, I guess. They're just right. I mean, I'm just going to off the bat say this to me is a perfect film.
I don't know about that.
I think that this is a perfect film. This was actually introduced to me by my good friend in high school. I had never seen it. Going to the cinema or watching things on TV, this wasn't the type of film that I naturally gravitated towards. I think my dad liked action films and westerns and horror. So those were the type of things where I found myself, or even because we're Hispanic, Spanish movies. So those were the places where I found myself. And having watched this, it was very illuminating. I remember the first time, because obviously you can never replicate that, right? The first time.
Yeah.
Once you see something, you've seen it. So, but the first time I sat and I watched this, I was really just moved. I mean, I want to say I was close to tears because it really spoke to me. And I think as a young person, you can find yourself in this kind of limbo where you just don't know. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where you've been. You don't know what the future holds for you. It can be overwhelming. It can be scary. It's easy to close yourself off and to...
Sometimes the world just doesn't
feel...
It doesn't fit you.
Yeah.
You know, it's you just feel awkward everywhere.
Yes.
And the things that people enjoy, it just seems so alien to you, or you feel so inhibited. There was the one bit where they're on the hill and he's like, I feel like doing somersaults. And she's like, why don't you?
Sure,
and he's
right.
like, because I would feel silly. And she's like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he just starts doing it. And then he's like, why don't you do something? She's like, you know what? I'll just scream.
Yeah.
And that was like, that leads me to another part, something I noticed about the film. There's definitely some, as far as like the filmmaking goes, just some strange, I guess, choices made, or almost like when she yells, suddenly they just dub in a Tarzan sound, Tarzan yell. Yeah, there are certain parts of the film that
might be a little too much.
Might be a bit too much. That bit, which to me is just entirely on the filmmaker. I guess they just felt like chucking something in there that was maybe they were told, oh, it's got to be funnier or something like that. Her yell isn't loud enough. I don't know. Maybe that was like studio interference or something.
Yeah.
But then there's the scene with the gun, and that one to me, it was just because up until then, all of his like suicide attempts, or they're not really attempts here. It's theatrics. He's putting on. He's basically
they were never done with her in the room. She would have to come into
she would come in, so it looked like there was like a setup, like maybe he was arranging things and setting things up. And this one was just they're both sitting in the room. The mother is chatting away on the phone. What she was like filling out a online dating form for him.
Yes.
Not online, obviously, because this is the 70s.
Pre all of that, yes.
And he just calmly loads a revolver. And
first he points it at her,
which she never even notices.
Right.
And then he points it at his own head and pulls the trigger.
Right. And then the next scene is just cars going into a cemetery. So you assume that something has happened, but then
that's just another funeral that he's attending. Yeah. So that one was kind of strange because it was, how did he arrange that? There was clearly a gunshot. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
He might have aimed it.
Yeah, I guess, but
because there's a scene where he goes like this, right? Or he goes like this.
He points the gun into his head.
Yeah,
that one seemed a little bit
maybe not well thought out.
Not well thought out. The other ones definitely
fit more with the story.
You felt like he was doing stuff and planning stuff and arranging stuff so that it would either dissuade a potential young lady from dating him or just to upset his mom.
Yes.
Yeah, those were two strange bits in the film.
And also Tom Skerritt not using his name
in the credits. They got pulled over by a motorcycle cop who is
obviously
clearly
Tom
Skerritt. I know who Tom Skerritt is.
He sounds the same.
He
looks
still
the same.
had the same damn mustache.
Yeah,
I mean, he must have been born with that damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is a few years before Alien.
Yeah.
So he doesn't
there
look much
he is.
different.
And for some reason, he's like Matt Borman in the credits.
Yeah.
It's like, is that supposed to be his stage name?
I mean, know.
If you're going to pick a stage name, why would you pick Matt Borman?
I don't know.
It's just like, you usually pick like, Flash Rip Rock. And,
Honey Boy Smith.
Lance Mannion.
Lance Mannion. God damn it. Those are the best. But still, I mean, that doesn't take away from the story. Again, it's on paper, it's something that shouldn't work. It should be creepy. The fact that this 20-something-year-old is hanging around and falling in love with a 79-year-old.
Yeah.
And yet it works here.
It does. The relationship is absolutely earned.
It's not love at first sight.
It's absolutely not love at first sight. He probably thinks she's a very strange lady, but he's a strange guy.
Yeah.
And
you see his love for Maude developing. I don't know that I think that she did love him, maybe not in that all-consuming, passionate way, but I think because he's so young, the experience and the time that he had spent with Maude definitely will shape his later relationships. And I think that having known Maude changes Harold for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. He realizes that, living is not something to be, what does she say, back away from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And like that scene itself where that
gorgeous
that bit of dialogue is said is perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like with Maude, it was sort of like she enjoyed like collecting strange things. Her house, she lived in a train car, which was like awesome. I was like, that is an awesome little house.
Yeah.
She lived in a train car just on the side of a road, and it was just
she stole cars for a living.
Yeah, she stole
whatever she needed
to transport. She just had this like key ring. She had a key ring that apparently she received that allowed her to just stick it in any car and it would work. It was like she had all the auto manufacturers' keys.
Yeah.
And her little train car was just full of strange
tchotchkes,
oddities and tchotchkes. And Harold fits that mold.
Yeah.
It's sort of like she saw somebody strange and interesting, and that was what Maude was after. She was after the interesting things in life, to find out more about them, to see the beauty in those things. And in that she saw that in Harold, this strange young man. He's a very young looking 20-year-old man.
Right.
Who for some reason goes to funerals for fun.
Yeah.
And then she like steals his car and she like offers to him a ride in his own car.
And she's driving like a lunatic.
She's driving like a lunatic, and he's just like, yeah, this is my car. And she's like, oh, well, then you should drive me home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a strange, very strange relationship, but it made sense.
Yeah. And I think another thing that she gives him pieces of herself. I mean, not a lot, but like she talks about being a protester and activism, and she talked about the umbrella, and he asks her about now, and she's still in the fight, kind of, not as much as she was before, but she's still in the fight. And I think her act of defiance is living each day in joy, and like it's the most delicious morsel in the world. And here's someone who also, there are points where she's telling a story and you see the sadness in her eyes. She's remembering things, but she doesn't let that consume her, not like Harold's done. Harold has allowed his feelings to become bigger and to dictate how he lives his life, whereas Maude sees value in everything and tries to cling to the beautiful. There's that, you had mentioned that scene where he tells her sort of his kind of backstory, where he was in school, he was working in a lab, there was an explosion and a fire. He wound up sneaking home and then finding out that the police had come to tell his mother that he had died, and she had a very big reaction about it. And he was always, I guess, looking for that. And he says that he didn't feel anything until that moment. So I guess trying to recapture that he was dead. And her response to him was, it's like this fear of of living, of being alive, and you shouldn't do that. You should embrace it.
Yeah,
and
life is for the living.
Life is for the living. Life is messy. It's not always pleasant, but everyone's given this gift, and she's the embodiment of that message. There's a very, very brief moment where they're watching, is it like a sunset or something? They're by the water, they're watching the birds, and he sees something on her arm, and it's over in a flash. It's never discussed. She never brings it up. There's no mementos to it, and yet it's part of who Maude is.
Yeah.
And I think that will to live, that defiance in the face of just such degradation and such evilness, the fact that she survived.
To live through a part of history that would make you doubt why life sucks.
Yeah,
life is horrible.
That there's any goodness here.
Why should we endure this nightmare, this living nightmare?
Right.
And to be like, you know what? Screw that.
Yeah.
No.
No.
This isn't a living. Yeah, that was bad.
Right.
But there is far more beauty in this world and far more joy to be had. If you just
open
live
yourself
your
to
life
it
to reach out and grab it with your hands.
Yeah.
And that's what she did.
Yeah.
And he sees that in her, and that it kind of inspires him and awakens something inside of him.
Right. To the point where he's willing now to put himself on the line and to offer her his heart.
Yeah.
He proposes to her. And it doesn't turn out how he, I guess, anticipated. But at the same time, I think this is also the beginning of a new chapter for Harold.
Yeah.
I think his final act, the thing that he does at the end of the film, is an indication that he's starting over by letting go of some of these things from the past. He's ready to move and do new things, because it can be scary. It can absolutely be scary, but he's had someone like Maude to kind of guide him and show him, and he's going to be okay, I think, at the end, right? Anything else?
No, I mean, I really think if you want to watch a good movie, you go see this. Like we said, it's a little bit slow in the beginning,
and I don't.
It's not by slow, I don't mean boring.
Yeah,
I just mean
the pacing.
The pacing of it is a bit on the slower side. The humor is dark.
Yes,
it's not like gut busting slapstick sort of humor. You find yourself smiling at the small, subtle things. There's like one bit where he does something and he's standing with I think it was after he had gotten the first date to run out of the room screaming. Him and the mother are standing there just looking at the door that the young lady has run out of. And he sort of like he basically looks at the camera and he puts on like this subtlest of smiles. Like, yeah. And then he looks at his mom and she sees that she's just pissed. And he immediately goes back to his like deadpan face.
Yes. I think I turned to you at that point. I was like, that very much reminded me of like Damien in The Omen.
Yes. There's a lot on Bud Cort's face that made me think. Seriously, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
It made me think of The Omen.
Yes.
That he would because he was just creepy a lot of the times, especially when he wanted to be, especially when he was meeting these new dates.
Yes.
Like even the last date when he like brings her into that big room, and she walks in and he just stands in the doorway and then purposely closes or like pushes the door, and it just like makes that creaking noise. And it goes on for like a really long time, like
yes.
And then they're like talking, he's like, oh, don't touch those knives, they're special. And like that's a Harry Carey blade. You're like, what's Harry Carey? And he doesn't even say what it is. He just goes into the demonstration and disembowels himself.
I want to read a couple of quotes from the film because again, this movie is so lovely. I'm so grateful to my friend Suzette for introducing me to this film. This is not a film that I would have gone out to see out. It wasn't taught to me in film school. I don't know when I would have seen it, and it always made an impression on me. Like the first time I saw it, I was just shell shocked at how just heartbreakingly beautiful it was to me. It just really. So I just want to read a couple of quotes that have always stayed with me from the film. And it was nice to hear them because obviously it's been many, many years since I've seen this film, so things fade in memory. But this is a movie that should be revisited over and over. This one is from Maude. A lot of people enjoy being dead. This is after he tells her that he's dead. He's been dead. But they aren't. Okay, let me start from again. A lot of people enjoy being dead, but they are not dead, really. They're just backing away from life. Reach out. Take a chance. Get hurt even. But play as well as you can. Go, team, go. Give me an L. Give me an I. Give me a V. Give me an E. Live. Otherwise, you got nothing to talk about in the locker room. It seems like such a simple message, but it's so profound, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing. Here's another one. This is again Maude. You know, at one time I used to break into pet shops to liberate the canaries, but I decided that was an idea way before its time. Zoos are full, prisons are overflowing. Oh my, how the world still dearly loves a cage. Mm-hmm. That is just like, think about that, right? Like, that is amazing. And this is like sharp writing that, like, today, like if somebody decided to remake this film, I would love to see it with either the same script or maybe obviously some nuances, because obviously there's a time, although there was never anything specific to the time. Like, they never talked about Nixon being president or the Vietnam War.
Those are alluded to.
They're alluded to. You see the Nixon poster, but they don't really go into it. So that's what I mean. Like, you could actually take this script and make this now.
Yeah.
And it would still just have all of that impact. Another Maudism. Maude. Harold. Everyone has the right to make an ass out of themselves. You just can't let the world judge you too much. Mm-hmm. I think that is also just amazingly powerful. And then my favorite in this whole film, after Harold tells her that he loves her, she says, "Oh, Harold, that's wonderful. Go and love some more." That, I think the first time I heard that, my eyes welled up with tears. Mm-hmm. Because, again, the act of living in spite of all the hardships and all the obstacles that come into a person's life, the act of living is an act of defiance. And here, Harold, he's been on this kind of sad slope, but I guess some of it has been his own doing, right? And
yeah. I think part of it, I mean, I'm guessing it was just something that he was born with too. It's just some people are just like that. They're inhibited.
Right.
And they don't want to be, really, but they just are.
Right.
And he sort of found, I guess, a glimpse of life when he saw how his mother reacted. Mm-hmm. Maybe he read it the wrong way. Maybe it was just like, oh, she does care about me. She genuinely loves me.
Right. But I have to do like these big things to get her to notice me or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it still wasn't him embracing life. He found like that one thing, and it was just, that was all he had. So,
but I think having
Maude opened his eyes to everything, because I mean, just look at the difference in
the way he dressed towards
the end. Just the fact that you looked at his house, which was big, empty, spacious. Everything looked like he lived in a museum, like in the cloisters or something.
Yeah.
And then you look at Maude's place, and it's just cramped. It's full of life and
color
and collections, and it's all on the walls. Like, every aspect of her life is there. She could probably tell you a story about all of it, and she does in certain points.
Yeah.
That it's for him. It probably was like walking into an alien world.
Sure.
It shows you what could be. Sometimes you just need your eyes opened.
Sure. Right, because you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. You're going through the motions. You're like, okay, this worked. I'm just going to stick with this for the rest of my life.
Right.
It's like eating the same sandwich every day for lunch.
Right.
And then somebody comes along and is like, what the hell are you eating that for? Here, look.
Yeah. Try this.
Let's go get some sushi instead.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
And also, I'm glad you brought up the thing about the house. It always, every time they filmed the house, he always seems so small in the scene.
I mean, those rooms were
massive,
colossal. They had every room. The ceilings were at least like 20 feet high.
At least. Yeah. It was like living in a castle.
It really was. I'm not that cloisters is not a joke. It felt like he was living in some sort of mansion.
Yeah.
I mean, he was living in a mansion. It felt like a museum.
Yeah.
But even the furniture looked so old and just wood with like the padding on it.
Yeah. Everything looked like it was like a museum piece.
Yeah.
What did you think of the other cast, like the mother?
I enjoyed the mother's performance. I thought
great,
she was great. She was just...
She was at her wit's end.
She cared a lot about Harold. It was interesting that there's no mention of the father really, or where he is, or what happened to him, or anything.
There's just that one little story at the dinner table where he was out for a walk. They were in Paris or something, and he just fell nude into the river.
Yeah, so... But other than that, there's no mention really of you don't ever see a picture of him or anything like that. Even when they were like, "Oh, is this a picture of your dad?" He's like, "No, that's my uncle."
Right.
But yeah, the mother was great, and like she clearly cares about him. She wants him to get out of this rut or this weird suicidal fantasy thing he's living in. But he's just doing it anyway, and she's just going about her life. Like when she's getting ready to go swimming, and she's got the robe on with the hood. She pulls the hood up. She got the little swimming cap, and then she takes it in. She goes into the pool, and there's Harold pretending to be dead, drowned,
face down,
fully in his fully dressed, face down in the water, and
you see her like her eyes like roll.
Yeah. She's like as she swims past her, she rolls her eyes, and then she swims back, and as she's swimming back, you just see Harold like looking at her from underneath the water.
Played by Vivian Pickles. We had
Pickles.
We had a laugh about her last name.
So she was great. The uncle was hilarious. The
oh my gosh,
uncle.
Yes.
That whole scene with them was
ridiculous,
amazing. When he's trying to convince him to join the army, and they come up with that plan, and he starts talking about. So I get to kill. I get to shoot him. What about a bayonet? What can I stab him and cut him? And the guy's like, yeah, you could do that. And he's like, what about if I choked him to death? Like hand in hand. And he's like, okay, yeah.
He's getting a little scared.
And he's like, what, can I stick a knife in their neck and just slit him across the throat and let the blood squirt out?
Yeah.
And he's like, what about trophies? Can I collect eyeballs and noses and ears? And
it's like, okay, wait a minute now. Oh my God, that was Uncle Victor, played by Charles Tyner,
and the priest. Oh God, the priest.
The priest was the best. Eric Christmas. Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
He's just like, that makes me want to vomit.
We had a good laugh about that.
That was probably the most laugh out loud moment in the entire film.
Yeah.
Like I said, this film isn't. It's got comedic elements, but it's more of like a life story.
Yes. But it does a really great job of meshing those two things. I mean, it's the story of this young man told in a funny way, but there's just a lot of beauty and poignancy in it. And he goes on that journey, right? I don't know if it's a hero's journey, but he definitely goes on a journey that he is now different than when the film started.
So what would you give it?
1 to 10? I'm going to give this a 10. Absolutely.
I would give it an 8.
An 8? You're wrong. But anyway.
No, it's a very good movie. It's a little bit, the pacing's a little slow. There are some bits where just for me, it took me out a little bit. The Tarzan yell and the gunshot scene. Yeah. But other than that, it had funny bits. It had very serious bits. It had interesting philosophical bits about life in general and living life, which is a lesson that some people need to hear because they become just so closed off. They're so afraid.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just, like she says, live, fail.
Yeah.
Failing. Yeah, failing is a huge part of just living life. And it sucks. And sometimes you're going to be terribly embarrassed. Sometimes you're going to want to hide away, but you learn from it.
Right.
And it makes you grow, and it gives you a funny story when you're older.
Yes.
You're right. When you're living it, you're thinking this is the worst thing ever.
Right. But no one ever really dies of embarrassment.
Yeah. 20 years from now, you're going to be sitting around with your friends drinking, having a few laughs, and then you'll just like bust out with some story about, I don't know, shitting yourself or something.
Exactly. I agree with you. This is not a film for everyone, but if you can give it a chance, you will reap the rewards. I felt like a different viewer after this film. I want to dedicate this episode of the podcast to my lovely, dear, one of my oldest friends, Susie. Happy belated birthday. By the time we put this up, it will have been a couple of weeks since your special day, but you are loved and adored, and I hope to see you soon. You have been such an amazing presence in my life. I'm so happy that we reconnected. I think of the old days fondly, but I also look forward to a future and spending time with you and making even better memories. I love you, my friend. Happy belated born day. And that's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.